welcome to week 2. This week we're going to be discussing bomb threats and terrorism in our emergency management course. And I just have some brief things to tell you about in regards to both of those areas. And I hope that you find the materials here interesting, as well as perhaps some challenges there for our discussions. Now, in looking at the nature of bombs, we oftentimes look at bombs as just that type of explosives that it's probably round and that it's big and there's like a little wick on it, you light it and then it explodes. Well, in many cases, that's not true. What we're looking at here is that they can take any shape or form, and they are intended to explode. Yes, I think you've probably figured that out by now, that it is going to explode. That's why they call it a bomb. Yes, so this bomb is going to be an explosive device, and it is also going to be homemade. And that's sometimes we feel that the explosive devices are made in factories or made in different locations that are huge productions. And this is not the case. The majority of bombs are going to be homemade, and the design is going to be limited here by two factors. First, the bomber's imagination and how to create this type of device, and then the resources that the bomber has available. A lot of times these resources are available through, believe it or not, hardware stores, such as Ace Hardware or Home Depot, where many of these products, as well as nails, for example, can be purchased. Oftentimes we see where bomb threats are being called in, many times they are being called hoaxes, but we do have to take each bomb threat very seriously. Normally it's going to be called in to the target. No, not the store, but I'm talking about the person that is intended for, or the organization that it is going to be intended for. This is what we're looking at. So if there happens to be a call that comes in from an outside line, then that person is going to be calling that particular organization or that particular person whom may be the target or what may be the target in this case. Then the caller may be the one who planted the bomb. Oftentimes these are people that are just working by themselves. On occasion, you may have a couple people that'll be working alongside one another in order to create this bomb event, and there'll be multiple phone calls that may be ensued in order to get their points across that there is a bomb, or perhaps that it's a fake bomb and they just want to cause psychological distress and havoc in the organization. The caller wants to create any type of anxiety, and they want to create panic. Panic in their eyes is good because that's exactly what they want. They want to see people hurt. They want to see people injured. And in many instances, depending on who the target may be or what organization it may be, unfortunately, they have very ill intentions, shall we say, for those people that are working within that particular area or that facility. And one of the things that they also like to do as well is the disruption of normal activities. We all have our daily activities that we tend to, whether it's going to be coming into the office, getting a cup of coffee, for example, and then going to our desk and then turning on our computer. However, they want that disruption to take place almost immediately, and also during business meetings or high times that perhaps are in the morning, 10:30 in the morning, 11 a.m., where most meetings are starting to take place. Most people are starting to become active, and they want disruption to occur. So keep all these factors in mind. Even though that many bomb threats are hoaxes and maybe fake calls, etc., we all have to take these very seriously in order to understand that the bad guys and gals that are out there are definitely out there to cause harm. Now, what can you do in regards to bomb threats? I bet you're feeling a little bit uneasy, and that's good, because I want to respectfully disturb you all with this, because it's true. This is what happens out there in the real world, and especially in emergency management. And when you're dealing with organizations and when you're dealing with people's lives, you need to understand that there's going to be some threats, but there's also going to be some mitigation and planning practices that we can all ensure that our safety is going to be of the utmost importance through planning. So looking at this, you're trying to make sure that there's a reduction of access to a facility, meaning that if there happens to be biometrics or a card system, or if there's going to be anything else that can perhaps assist as far as security personnel, This way, they are on top of things and being able to watch perhaps the cameras that are all focusing on various parts of the organization and in parking lots around the building and perimeters. Those are the areas that are going to minimize the access to that particular facility. And then limit the amount of time lost to enter into the facility and the search actions, meaning that it's going to take them a longer period of time to get into the facility, and it gives the good guys and gals an opportunity then to go and look at what's going on and search for the actions that are taking place. Having good cameras as well as fine-grained cameras are going to be two of the main areas that you can definitely make an improvement on as far as the physical facility is concerned. And then you want to instill confidence in the leadership team. We all know, hopefully we do, that the leadership team is going to be looking out for our best interests, but we also have to realize that the leadership team is only as good as the personnel within that particular facility, due to the fact that personnel have to be awake enough to make sure that they look around and check their areas, as well as also checking the perimeter areas should they be walking in and they see perhaps some meddling that is going on around the building, or if it's some unusual vehicles that are parked outside the building. These are all signs and symptoms that are definitely going to be part of planning against terrorism, as well as being able to understand that these people are definitely out there to cause harm. And it's up to us to be on top of things, and also being able to identify these people that are willing to cause harm, reporting to security, perhaps calling police, and perhaps calling emergency services if needed. So much as we discussed in the last slide here, now let's take a look at security against bomb incidents. Basically, for a physical security plan, what we're looking at is the protection of property, and then the prevention of control, and then access. So taking the first one there, protection of property, we touched on that just a little bit, but in order to protect property, there has to be some things that are done to buildings. It's perhaps reinforcement, perhaps different types of steel doors, perhaps different types of barriers, perhaps shrubbery that is around the physical perimeter in order to minimize some of the areas where these bombers and attackers can approach the building. The more things that are in the way, let's face it, like if you close a door, it makes it a little bit more difficult to get to that place, because now you have to turn the knob and pull the door open, much is the same situation here when you're dealing with people that are trying to fulfill their mission and dealing with terrorism and bomb threats. The more things that are in the way, the less likely they are to succeed in certain circumstances. And then prevention of overall control and access. If we're in control and we have the buzzer that can open or close doors, that definitely minimizes their opportunities for an attack, as well as accessibility within the building. Now, we all know that things can happen. People can perhaps lose their identification cards, or perhaps the terrorists that are planning these bombs know where to get in, know how to follow people behind, saying, oh, I just lost my ID and I just need to get in. I'm a new employee and gosh, I just forgot about it. And they walk right in, somebody scans them in, and that's it. And now they're within your organization. So keep that in mind. It's not always going to be clear and cut and dry in dealing with these circumstances. The other thing that we can also do is create a bomb incident plan, and these are going to be detailed procedures to be implemented. How are we going to go about minimizing life safety issues? How are we going to be minimizing the threats that are out there in the physical environment, as well as the psychological environment? Let's face it, when we hear bomb threat, you probably stop, and everything stops, because you're wondering whether or not that is going to be a true analogy there, or if it's going to be something that is going to be false and like a hoax. So keep that in mind too. And then creating a defined chain of command. I can't emphasize this enough. As a former employee within the hospital system, I found it very beneficial to have a chain of command, whether it's going to be dealing with the hospital incident command system, or if it's going to be dealing with the incident command system externally with emergency management and other participants in the field. These are two of the things that were very helpful when we were planning, training, and educating our personnel on such incidents such as anthrax, such as a bomb threat, such as an active threat or an active shooter. Creating a defined chain of command will minimize some of the stress and some of the issues that can occur unexpectedly once the incident takes place. If there is a bomb threat, we do have to look at certain circumstances and certain things, such as evacuation. So being able to evacuate, you're being able to move fluidly, there we go. It came out, I knew. Yeah, that's what happens when you have a PhD, permanently head damage. That's where I'm at, yes. So when you move fluidly through the floors, it's a lot easier to get from point A to point B. You also have to keep in mind, too, to update floor blueprints. One thing in life that's constant, as I always say in emergency management, things change. And every 2 seconds, things are going to change out there. Much like when you're driving an automobile. If you're looking to your left, you see a car that might be approaching you. Look back in your rearview mirror, there's someone maybe getting a little bit closer to you, or perhaps going a little bit farther away. My point being is that you need to update your blueprints in order to make sure that other doors are there, or if they're not there, or if they've been walled up, if another wall that has been placed in there during construction, you need to know that, because if a wall happens to be there and it used to be a door and you happen to go in that different direction and you run into a wall, no pun intended, you know exactly what's going to take place. More panic is going to occur, and it could be a life or death situation for you. And then open lines of communication. I cannot tell you how many times in training and exercises that we performed at our facilities that communication was always the top thing to fail. And as many times as we tried to use radios and our telecommunication systems and our computer systems, there was something wrong. And believe me, when there is a real incident, that's when communications are going to be tested. Whether or not the system is going to function or not, that remains to be seen, due to the fact that everyone handles stress differently in one of those areas. So understand that communications needs to be open at all times, and make sure that you have enough radios and enough equipment and enough backups for communications in the event that you need to evacuate, as well as dealing with these bomb threats. And then finally, maintain control and tracking of personnel. Once you have a meeting place established, that's where you're going to be able to understand that, okay, everyone is accounted for, or who are we missing? There are times where you're not going to be able to account for each and every person immediately. Don't panic. Just remember that they're going to be there someplace. Sometimes they just walk away because they want to go have a cigarette break, even though they're supposed to meet at that certain spot. And that's a true story. So realize that maintaining control and tracking of personnel may be difficult at first, but it needs to be included in the implementation of evacuation and in your evacuation plan. So now that we have an evacuation plan in place, now we have to have a response to bomb threats. Okay, well, we utilize our resources, but when our resources become overwhelmed, perhaps we need to go a little bit above and beyond. And this is where utilization of government resources come in. So we're utilizing government resources such as security plans, use of inspectors such as bomb inspectors or hazardous materials inspectors, and then developing effective strategies through the use of the governmental agencies. And how do you do that? Well, you also have training that's involved. And training and education of personnel is of the utmost importance, especially when you're dealing with life safety issues here with bomb threats. And then being able to identify leadership and having a leadership plan in place. So you identify who's going to be in charge of the overall incident for your particular organization, and then having a leadership plan. So the executive staff or the management staff, depending on where you're at, will be overseeing this type of incident. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, the president's just going to take over and just kind of oversee things. Probably the president is the last one that you want to have in that particular area, due to the fact that the president has other things going on, and that the media and that other people are going to be calling in and wondering what's going on. The president is best suited in those areas where he or she can be diplomatically adept, as well as answering any of those questions that might be out there, and also being able to allocate funding and resources that may be necessary. So you might go down in the chain of command, which we just talked about in the previous slide, and being able to identify those areas that are most important and with the people that are most important. And very quickly, I just want to let you know that even with the greatest of plans and even the best policies that are out there, 33% of the people that you normally can rely upon will disappear. And I don't mean that literally. I mean that they will go back home, or they will leave the facility and tend to their loved ones, or they will be frightened enough to where they're not going to come back. So, in essence, when you have your response plans and your evacuation plans and policies in place, understand that you're going to lose a good number of people in these incidents. It happened in Hurricane Katrina. It happened in many other tornadoes and disasters throughout the United States, as well as overseas with typhoons, that they lost half of the personnel there. So keep that in mind, that in our cases here, more than likely you're going to lose 33% of the personnel that are normally going to be there. Doesn't sound very, very confident, and it sounds very bad when we're going through this. However, I understand ahead of time you're going to have to utilize other resources. Thus is the reason why you may need to utilize governmental resources. In switching gears a little bit here, let's take a look at suspected mail bombs. So a lot of times you're going to get a package, and we all know what a normal package perhaps looks like, with the name and the address, and it's sealed, etc. However, a couple things you need to understand about mail bombs. You might not have a return address on the package. The package itself is going to be sealed with a lot of tape and wrapped around in several locations and different places, because the bomb itself is inside and it doesn't need to be moving around and shifting. Also, keep in mind that you'll have misspelled words, because a lot of times the bomber or the person that is posing the threat may not have exactly, well, respectfully, the highest level of education out there. And a lot of times they'll have misspelled words there, either A, because they don't know how to read or write, or perhaps they do it intentionally to throw people off. It's going to be probably a rigid and or a bulky package in nature. It might be odd shaped and taped up in various parts, saying that's really strange. And then it's going to have some discoloration or oily stains. And that's due to the type of materials that are going to be utilized in a mail bomb, especially when you open the package. So keep these signs and symptoms in mind as you perhaps receive mail, or if you see any mail perhaps on campus. This might be something that you need to kind of take a look at. So be aware of it. Don't be afraid. Just be aware that these are some of the signs out there that are going to lead to a suspected mail bombing. If it isn't bad enough to have mail bombs and bomb threats within your organization or location, or even schools for that matter, now you have dirty bombs. And these are pretty much the most common types of bombs that are out there that terrorists are going to be using. You see this oftentimes with guerrillas and guerrilla warfare that is taking place, but also the dirty bombs here have a combination of either dynamite and or a radiological device. The main purpose there, again, is to frighten people and those in leadership. A lot of times these dirty bombs are used to overthrow that particular government, or it might be used there to overthrow that particular organization due to the fact that they don't like the hierarchical structure that's inside that particular organization. And they want to cause fear, they want to cause panic, and they may use multiple devices as well. It's not just one attaché case, or it's not just one package that might be out there being used. And you have to realize that what they want to do is cause severe injuries and also create illnesses. So it depends. If you have a radiological device, that can cause severe burns. It can cause injuries, as well as causing health issues along the way. If you happen to be in the event of a dirty bomb, here's what you can do. Well, one of the things you can do is leave the immediate area on foot. Do not drive, do not get on public transportation, do not get on other types of trains or cars or anything else that's out there. You want to leave on foot. And the reason why is you don't want to continually spread that contamination, especially if it happened to be a small radiological device. You want to go to the nearest building that you can, and once within a medical facility, you want to remove clothing as soon as possible and place it into a plastic bag. And the reason why is you want to save the contaminated clothing to test for the amount of exposure that you may have been exposed to when that radiological device, for this scenario at least, has gone off. So keep that in mind, that you want to maintain as much as possible a calmness about yourself, but you also have to think and realize that the more people that you're going to come in contact with, that radiological device will also make an impact not only on yourself, but based on some of the radioactive material that may be on your clothing, depending on how close you were in proximity to that explosion, that may impact the lives of other people as well. Well, I hope you found this information useful for this particular unit and this particular week. There's more to come in the upcoming weeks. I'm going to be giving these lectures as we move along. It's not the end-all, be-all to all the readings that we have, nor the discussion boards or the assignments. I just want to merely enhance the experience that you're having here with this emergency management course and let you know that there is a real person behind the little 16-inch monitor that you're staring at and wondering, does the professor really exist? Yes, I'm here. I'm here to help you out. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, call me, text me, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions that you may have. Blessings, and you have a pleasant day.